meters, take exit 50 for Financial Center Street, D71 toward E66, E44.
Soviet power. Communist Poland told people how to think, rejected church influence, and tolerated no dissent. He now accuses LGBT activists of behaving in the same way, and he argues his country, with its history, is uniquely placed, like a canary.
Take exit 50, then keep left at the fork.
To free speech.
This time they arrest a lot, but instead they are fighting for people, for the workers, for peasants. They now bring
Keep left at the fork.
sexual management. It was not true. It's not true. And because we live in Kazakhstan, we better feel the dangers because these dangers attack us.
Keep left at the fork.
One group based in Warsaw is now so worried about the influence of gays that it regularly sends out trucks
Continue for 1 kilometer.
to streets. Their message links homosexuality and sex education with paedophilia. Some LGBT activists are so frustrated they've taken direct action. In this video clip, 3 of them are in an altercation with a volunteer after allegedly attacking the truck he was driving. The most prominent of the campaigners was born Michał Szutorich, but is now known as Margot. She was jailed and charged with battery and criminal damage in June. But just as I'm about to leave Poland, I hear she's been released on bail after an international campaign to free her. So I'm off to see her.
In 400 meters, merge onto Alsafa Street, D71.
Big rainbow flag on 3 floors up. And it says in Polish, the real problem are the pedophiles in cassocks. Margot belongs to Stockholm.
Merge onto Alsafa Street, D71, then slight left.
She has blonde hair and owlish Harry Potter style glasses. Talking to us through our translator, she says there's no longer any point.
Slight left, then turn left onto Happiness Street.
For years, we've been asking for minimal provisions in legislation that would protect us, if not from discrimination.
Turn left onto Happiness Street, then you'll arrive at your destination.
A discussion about same-sex marriage, about support in transition, about the status of sex, are just way beyond the horizon.
Więc niech osoby, które nie przeżyły swojego
So let the
życia,
people who have not lived the life of LGBT community in this country judge us. And then there should be no surprise that eventually we take things in our own hands.
You say take things into our own hands. How far will you go?
to nie jest tak, że mamy jakieś granice, gdy nie mamy nic do stracenia.
It's not there are any limits.
But the ultra-conservatives are also determined, also at all costs, to prevail. On the streets of Warsaw, it's another day.
You've arrived.
Demonstration. This time a big one, from a number of groups, including one.
Head southwest on Happiness Street. In 150 meters, at the roundabout, take the 4th exit and stay on Happiness Street.
And then the words of All Polish Youth spokesman Mateusz Marzok send a chill down the spine.
Tęczowa zaraza będzie się rozprzestrzeniała, jeżeli my jako społeczeństwo...
This rainbow plague will continue to spread if we as a society allow it to. One of the gay activists has said the time for peaceful struggle's over. Well, they need to know that if they're going to take the gloves off, our side won't run off to hide. We'll meet them head on, and it's gonna hurt.
To jest jedna rzecz i będzie bolało.
From small town Poland to the capital, Catholic values are pugnaciously reasserting themselves as more permissive forces demand their voice be heard. But this debate over morality, culture, and the future of Poland increasingly sounds like a dialogue of the deaf. That's all from this edition of Assignment and me, Lucy Ash. The producer was Mike Gallagher.
This is the BBC World Service. Now take a moment to listen to this. Commitment.
We've constantly faced the attack on our clinics, and in those times, we don't stop caring for our patients.
And determination.
He was desperate for answers, and that really struck me.
Feelings.
In 300 meters, turn right onto Al Safa Street, D71. Head southwest on Happiness Street. In 150 meters, at the roundabout, take the 4th exit and stay on Happiness Street.
We miss sport most acutely because sport fundamentally is about bringing people together.
It was very different. The setting, the language, everything.
It is potentially a humanitarian catastrophe.
Documentaries on the BBC World Service.
You really are stepping into the unknown.
To listen, go to bbcworldservice.com/documentaries.
In 300 meters, at the roundabout, continue straight to stay on Happiness Street.
Well, the vaccine would be a great help in tackling COVID-19.
Head southwest on Happiness Street. Turn right onto 13th Street.
You from progressing to disease, but because you're infected, you may or may not be able to transmit.
In 400 meters, turn right onto Al Multica Street.
Coronavirus crisis, it seems, as you can hear after the news.
BBC News with Eileen McHugh. Senior Republicans in the United States have promised that there will be a peaceful transfer of power should Donald Trump lose the election in November. A day earlier, Mr. Trump refused to commit to an orderly handover, saying we'll have to see what happens. The authorities in the U.S. state of Kentucky have charged a suspect over the shooting of 2 police officers.
Head southwest on Happiness Street towards 13th Street, then make a U-turn at 13th Street.
Breonna Taylor.
In 200 meters, at the roundabout, continue straight to stay. Head southeast on 13th Street toward 52A Street.
Coronavirus.
In 300 meters, turn right onto 58A Road, Al Albani Street.
System now in place. Move comes as Britain recorded its highest daily number of coronavirus cases since May, 6,600.
Turn right onto 58A Road, Al Albani Street.
The main Palestinian factions, Fatah and Hamas, have agreed to hold the first joint elections in 15 years. Officials said the vote would take place within 6 months. Houthi rebels
continue on 58A Road for 1 kilometer.
Days of resistance against the Saudi-led coalition. The Houthis seized the capital Sana'a in 2014 from the Yemeni government, which prompted a military intervention led by Saudi Arabia. Reports from France say prosecutors have opened an inquiry into the giant BNP Paribas bank over alleged complicity in human rights violations in Sudan. The bank is said to have financed the former Sudanese government, which was under international sanctions. And US scientists have confirmed that the lockdown has caused some birds to change their songs. They found that sparrows in the San Francisco Bay Area responded to a drop in traffic noise by improving the quality of their song.
In 400 meters, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto 35th Street, Almamar Road.
There's not a hint of phosphine on this week's Science in Action from the BBC World Service. Everyone else has been talking about that fishy whiff of life up in the clouds of Venus, but we've got...
In 200 meters, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto 35th Street, Almamar Road.
I'm Roland Pease. To be fair, there's nothing I'd drop from this week's edition to make way for those spectral speculations. For example, what it feels like for a researcher staring down a microscope onto the virus that's killed almost 1 million people this year.
Those cells, once they are infected, they become a viral.
In 150 meters, at the roundabout, continue straight onto the Sheikh Zayed Road, E11 ramp.
We know that those ciliated cells, the hair-like protrusions, are constantly beating. They are there to chase the mucus, but here they're gonna just spread around those viruses.
And as Hurricane Sally, fueled by ocean warmth,
in 200 meters, merge onto Sheikh Zayed Road, E11.
Of the world's oceans.
And then it turns out that the pathway through the water is sufficiently complex.
Merge onto Sheikh Zayed Road, E11, then take exit 47.
From warming near the bottom of the ocean.
stop anemia, but also protects against malaria by preventing the parasite
Take exit 47, then keep left at the fork.
life cycle. 2 years ago, researchers identified a second protective mutation. It was related to a rare blood type first identified in the 60s.
Keep left at the fork.
Adaptive blood type. But how does it protect? That's what geneticist Sylvia Kariuki of the KEMRI Wellcome Trust Program.
In 800 meters, keep left at the fork. Follow signs for E11 North, Sheikh Zayed Road.
Proteins on the red blood cell surface, then this protein is used by the malaria parasite to gain entry into the red blood cell. So this is kind of like a lock and key mechanism happening. So the parasite has the key and there are several locks on the red blood cell. This DANT mutation is a change in one of those locks. And so what we set out to do was to try to understand what the effect of this mutation would be on the ability of the parasite to gain entry into the red blood cell.
I mean, your paper comes with a whole bunch of videos. Am I right? You just sort of sat there with little microscope slides with these red blood cells and malaria parasites?
Keep left at the fork.
I should say here that this work was done in collaboration with colleagues at the Wellcome Sanger Institute and at the University of Cambridge. Exactly.
In 600 meters, merge onto Sheikh Zayed Road E11.
Observed these red blood cells and the malaria parasites in real time, looking to see and compare how well the parasite is able to invade DANTU red blood cells or other non-DANTU red blood cells.
I mean, were they just sort of, as it were, knocking at the door, but not getting in?
Precisely. If you put a non-DANTU red blood cell and a DANTU red blood cell side by side, you can actually track how the parasite behaves as soon as it encounters these red blood cells. So for the non-DANTU red blood cell, it makes contact and easily gets in.
Continue on Sheikh Zayed Road for 7 kilometers.
It makes contact with the membrane and struggles. You can tell that it's struggling. It's really trying to find its way into the red blood cell, but does not. Gets exhausted and disappears. So one of the remarkable findings that we found, the reason that parasites were not able to enter the DANTU red blood cells as easily was because these red blood cells were stiffer. Their cell membranes happened to be stiffer than non-DANTU red blood cells.
They got a kind of toughened skin.
A toughened skin, which the parasite tries to knock on the door and tries to get its way in, but the door is too heavy for the parasite to penetrate into the red blood cell. So with our colleagues in Cambridge, we were able to measure this membrane stiffness across different red blood cells, and they found that there was a certain threshold of stiffness above which the parasite just could not be able to gain entry into the cell.
I mean, I never even expected to go down this direction.
Yes, so this was quite a remarkable finding for us. This membrane stiffness is a fundamental property of the red blood cell that varies across the 30-day life cycle of the red blood cell. The older the red blood cell is, the more stiff it becomes. So this is something that's naturally occurring in all of us. But then to find that increased membrane stiffness, so this was a fundamental finding. If the red blood cells just happen to have an increased stiffness, but the parasite is not able to gain entry into the red blood cell, then this is the mechanism for resistance to malaria infection. It's a pretty exciting finding for us.
I mean, as a human geneticist, you're probably the right person to think about this, that this is how evolution works, and there will be mutations that will sometimes confer an advantage, and it sounds like this is one of those mutations that at the moment is only, I suppose, newly spreading in the population.
Yes, so there are some humans that happen to be living along the East African coast who have adapted to this strong selective force that is malaria by having this new mutation. Well, they think it's new, but also that's something we need to investigate further to figure out when this mutation might have arisen in this population. This mutation is then conferring protection against malaria. Is it having any other effects? This is something that we still need to know.
In 3 kilometers, take exit 54A55 for D79E66 toward Al Ain.
Is there any way that you can apply any of this